Republicans in the Senate have done all we can to continue the normal operations of the federal government and secure certainty for these S-chip kids. We could pass it tonight if we go to the president for signature. These kids would be okay.
Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell wept some crocodile tears just after midnight over the 9 million low-income children who depend on the Children's Health Insurance Program, CHIP, which expired 4 months ago and which Republicans could have renewed at any point since then. Instead, they wanted to use those 9 million kids as pawns to try and force Democrats to go along with short-term funding of the government. They've admitted as much. In a tweet on Friday, McConnell posed this choice to Democrats: millions of children who depend on the government for health care, or the hundreds of thousands of young people who were brought into this country as children and who will soon face deportation. Back with me are Jason Johnson and Kirsten Haglund, and joining me now is Malcolm Nance of the Terror Asymmetrics Project, who among his many, many talents and fields of expertise also knows a thing or two about hostage negotiation. So Malcolm, we already know that that you are the real 007, that you have all these backgrounds. But we brought you on specifically because, you know, there's been this hostage metaphor used with the way that Mitch McConnell played this game. And I want to put back up his own tweet, which essentially admitted that that's what he was doing, where he said, you can only have you can save one of these two hostages. You can save the CHIP kids or you can save the DACA kids, but not both. In that situation, did Democrats do the right thing in holding out and refusing to negotiate?
Well, you know, there are a couple of different ways you can look at this. First off, the example you just gave me was more of Sophie's choice than it was a hostage standoff. But using the analogy of a hostage standoff, what we're seeing here is, you know, when you have a hostage taker, a criminal hostage taker, he just needs a concession. And his concession that he needs it as expediently as possible. And it's the job of a negotiator to keep that person talking until you both wear each other down and you can get that concession or you can get that person to resolve the issue. This is much more akin to a terrorist hostage taking, as we've seen in some groups in the Middle East. They premeditated this. I mean, the CHIP program, they got rid of, or they didn't re-establish months ago with the intention of using it as a bargaining chip and, if possible, killing it. Same thing with the DACA program. So by putting the Democrats into this binary choice, there was never going to be a good outcome of that. As a matter of fact, at this point, that's when we would just use, execute an assault and use a SWAT team to do a hostage rescue.
In case people don't, just before you finish your answer, in case people think that Malcolm is using hyperbole, I want to let the viewers listen to Senator Mike Rounds, Republican of South Dakota. He was on with Chuck Todd on Thursday on Meet the Press Daily, admitting to exactly what you just heard Malcolm Nance say. Take a listen.
Under the current proposal, CHIP is then off the table because it's then been extended for a period of 6 years. And so then what is the next bargaining chip that actually brings Democrats to the table? So that's one of the questions I think that a number of us have raised.
What he's saying there, Malcolm, is that if this had passed and they'd extended CHIP for 6 years, it would make the hostage useless. I mean, that's amazing.
You know, again, using this hostage analogy, when you take a hostage, the key is trying to keep that hostage alive and well enough so that you can really use them to get leverage over the person who's either going to pay a ransom or give you a concession. In this circumstance, the hostage, the hostage taker has made it pretty clear that program was probably never going to survive. DACA was never going to survive. And so what you have is a suicide, what we call a suicide hostage standoff. And again, that's when you have to intervene forcefully. And what we've seen here is them use this situation to essentially destroy everything and everybody who is negotiating.
You know, Jason, there's this, The Hill is reporting this morning that Senator Jeff Flake, erstwhile Jeff Flake, who seesaws between being very tough on Donald Trump and being very conciliatory toward Mitch McConnell and believing it when he gets promised things, is now saying, as of early this morning, that they have a promise from Senate leadership to bring up a DACA fix early next month. Is there any reason for Democrats to believe that at this point, that Republicans will, in good faith, if they just give them this continuing resolution, will negotiate DACA in good faith next month?
Under no circumstances, Joe, and you definitely don't want to believe it from Jeff Flake. Jeff Flake is always saying Donald Trump is a terrible guy, but he ain't really about that life. Jeff Flake is never going to do anything that really goes against the Republican Party. And here's the other thing to remember, and I was saying this, earlier, when you know that the terrorist is going to kill the hostage, it makes it really hard to negotiate with them. This is like the Joker saying, I've got a bus full of kids here and a bunch of orphans and nuns over there. Which one are you going to save, Batman? But you know that he's going to try to kill them both. So, at the end of the day, the Democrats recognize that their best option is not to try to negotiate with crazy supervillains, but to actually just come up with a plan and recognize that at some point, the Joker or Mitch McConnell are going to get bored, and they're going to recognize that this is harming us as well. And we'll get some sort of functional government back. And I'm telling you, if this ends up lasting a while, if it goes past this weekend, it starts hurting people financially, it hurts the soldiers and hurts regular workers and things like that, it's going to hurt the Republican Party in those rural districts where the federal government is the only employer, and they're going to fold.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to come to Kirsten. My producers have loaded in an interesting email and I'll read it to you guys now. Here's an email that you receive when you try to email the assistant press secretaries in the White House Communications Department. You get the following email. Unfortunately, I'm out of the office today because congressional Democrats are holding government funding, including funding for our troops and other national security priorities, hostage to an unrelated immigration debate. Please contact Raj Shah, Hogan Gidley, or Lindsay Walters for all media inquiries. Kirsten, that is not normal functioning of government. It's sort of injecting politics into basically just the reply email that you get when you try to email your government. Was that something you would counsel Republicans to keep doing?
No. This whole thing is just completely ridiculous. You know why? Because both Republicans and Democrats agree on extending CHIP funding, and they have since it was about to expire in September. Also, both Republicans and Democrats agree that there should be protection for dreamers. So how in the world did we get this? And this is why Americans are so frustrated, both on the left and the right, with the government. And President Donald Trump came in and said, we're going to get rid of the swamp, politics as usual, et cetera. And that is exactly what is happening here. You have people that agree that can't come to any kind of functioning government. And I will say that Republicans are going to take the blame for this. There has never been a shutdown where the Republican Party or any majority party has controlled both the White House and the Congress and shut down the government. So this is entirely going to fall in their lap. And maybe it would have been a little different if they hadn't had so many legislative failures over 2017. Yeah. But with that, coupled with this government shutdown, it's all bad press for them. The Democrats were absolutely right to do what they do, and to use either children or the Dreamers as bargaining chips is completely revolting. And I think that the people, the American people, understand that, both in cities and rural areas. These issues are not going away. And if they continue to show that they will keep persisting with these brinkmanship tactics, they're going to show they're completely ineffective at governance. And honestly, that's just tragic for everyone.
But Jason, it's pretty clear, though, it's not that not all Republicans are. They're making a very stark statement every time they talk about this issue, that Democrats just care about the illegal people and not our people. That is not, they're not hiding that.
Oh, no. Mitch McConnell's tweet was basically like, an 80s political ad where it's like, look, the dark people. It's literally got dark, Chiron here. Yeah. That is what the contrast they're trying to set up. The problem is that the vast majority of America, 80% of them, are like, yeah, we think those people should actually be here. The contrast isn't working. And at the end of the day, when people get frustrated, it's like, who's going to act like an adult? And they want the president to act like an adult. They want Mitch McConnell to act like an adult. No one's going to blame the party that's in the minority. It doesn't make any sense. And here's the other thing, and this is, I think, one of the reasons why this might last for long. You've got some Republicans who are like, we're going to show we're tough, and you've got the Democratic progressive base who feels like, look, they've been left naked at the poker table for the last 8 years to the Republicans. They lost a Supreme Court seat. They had another shutdown. There are progressive Democrats who are like, hooray, our party is finally showing we're tough, and that's why this is going to last.
Yeah, last word to you, Malcolm Nance. What do you make of Republicans trying to conflate the terrorism threat with DACA and essentially implying that somehow, terrorists are using these programs to get into the country?
Well, we know that they're not. We know that the people who are coming into these countries, who are committing terrorism in the United States, overwhelmingly are American citizens who were born and raised here. There's more right-wing extremism in the United States carrying out acts of terrorism than there are, members of other ideologies, and that's just empirical. It's just a fact. They can conflate that for political purposes, but what they do is they damage the country, and they actually help foreign terrorist propaganda by saying that.
All right. Well, Jason Johnson and Kirsten Haglund, thank you both. Malcolm Nance is sticking around. Thank you, guys. And up next, stormy clouds on the horizon.